Deadlink is a fast-paced roguelite FPS from Grubby Entertainment that takes place in a cyberpunk dystopia where the player fights back against mega corporations. It has been described as a cross between Doom Eternal and Hades, and the game focuses on quick reflexes, resource management, and the utilization of special abilities. Movement in Deadlink is similar to Doom Eternal and some other boomer shooters, with its dashing and double jumping, but the resource management is what has the biggest impact on the similarity of gameplay. Since this is a roguelite, whenever you fail a run, you can spend tokens and experience points gained on permanent upgrades known as Deadlink upgrades, which can make successive runs just a little bit easier. These permanent upgrades include damage boosts, reduction of incoming damage, a defibrillator that acts as an extra life, improved energy shield regeneration, higher max energy shields, and higher max health, just to name a handful. As you can tell from what's on screen right now, the Deadlink upgrades are quite extensive. I don't typically enjoy roguelites or roguelikes, but Deadlink systems are so fun and so finely tuned that it is easily one of the best shooters to come out of 2023. So, how is the game structured? Well, it goes like this. There are 4 levels or zones in total, with each having a unique visual aesthetic. The first 2 levels consist of 8 combat encounters, and the third level consists of 6. The last level is as long as you want it to be, as you can gain upgrades and reduce the final boss's hit points by stopping at various floors on the way up the tower to defeat mini-bosses. The first level probably has my favorite visual aesthetic, with its neon-soaked city streets that are full of sex clubs. Yeah, there are a lot of sex clubs in this first level. Anyway, the game's enemy variety is also fantastic, as each level contains its own unique set of enemies that are introduced over the course of each area. These enemies are made up of cyborgs, robots, and mechs. There are your typical cannon fodder types, but beyond that, you will fight giant spider mechs, big sumo dudes with energy shields that take far more damage on their backsides, teleporting geisha cyborgs, and big bruisers that leap at you with a hammer. Later in the game, you will even encounter spongy enemies with giant metallic shields and robots that need to be punched in the back to effectively be deleted from existence. To add even more variety and challenge to the experience, every level ends in a unique boss fight. For whatever reason, I always find the second level's boss to be the most difficult to put down. What's also cool about Deadlink is that you can unlock up to 4 playable classes known as combat shells, which each have their own Deadlink upgrades, in addition to the general upgrades that apply to all combat shells. These are essentially high-tech human-like drones that are piloted by the player from the game's hub, which also acts as a menu screen. Most of my playtime has been with the soldier, as I find his shotgun and rocket launcher loadout to be quite fun, intuitive, and effective, as I can put my quick switching strategies that I learned from Doom Eternal to good use. On top of that, there is also the Hunter, a combat shell that wields an awesomely fast revolver and an electric weapon that functions like the lightning gun from Quake or the Link gun from Unreal Tournament. Then there's the Engineer, another combat shell that I have grown very fond of, that wields a machine gun and grenade launcher with remote detonation ability. And lastly, there is the Juggernaut, a tanky unit that carries a double-barreled shotgun and a rocket launcher that doesn't do any self-damage. The weapon loadouts are not the only differences between these combat shells, however, as each one also has distinct abilities. The soldier can use his grip wire repel to grapple enemies and C-balls, something that I will discuss in more detail later, and can stun enemies with the scrambler. The hunter can translocate from one spot to another in the blink of an eye. And can put out decoys to distract enemies. Then the engineer can latch onto enemies with the wormlink and can drop down turrets. While the Juggernaut has a flying punch and the ability to have temporary invulnerability while collecting the damage directed at him within this window and sending it back to all of the enemies caught in the path of this attack. An extremely important game mechanic is that all of these abilities, in addition to grenades that all combat shells can throw, mark enemies. And when an enemy is marked, killing them will release a bunch of blue shield points that will recharge your energy shield. Health can only be regained at medtechs or from medkits bought at shops, so keeping your shield points up is vital to your survival. What is also important to note is that your primary weapon has infinite ammo, but it does have to be reloaded, unless you swap weapons. Swapping to your secondary weapon cancels the need to reload your primary. Your secondary weapon, however, does not have infinite ammo, and ammo is regained by killing enemies, breaking C-balls, and collecting ammo pickups, with the breaking of C-balls being really the primary way to get ammo back. Going back to abilities, every ability is on a cooldown, but these cooldowns are generally pretty short, so using your abilities as often as possible is highly recommended. And these systems work together beautifully to create a highly addictive combat loop that leans heavily on resource management, which is, like I said, very similar to Doom Eternal in this respect. But that's not all! Oh no, there are also several perks and upgrades that you can obtain that last over the course of a single run. After many combat encounters, you will be able to select a cybernetic implant that grants a buff of some kind upon exiting a combat area. At the end of some arenas, multiple exits will present themselves. Sometimes there might be an exit that presents a selection of stat boosts, an exit that refills your health, an exit that grants experience points or tokens that you can spend on permanent Deadlink upgrades. You can also locate secret upgrades between combat arenas if you listen for the pinging sound that they make and shoot their location upon discovery. These upgrades can be accessed in the Matrix menu, which is in the combat shell's inventory. Next to each implant is an image of a battery that shows how much energy is required to activate its active upgrade. Most implants have a passive upgrade that isn't dependent on where it is placed in the matrix. But to use the soldier's matrix as an example, weapon swapping generates 1 energy point, while grip wire and scrambler use grant 2 energy points, and C-ball breaks grant 3. Therefore, if you want to take advantage of an implant's active upgrade, you will want to place it in a proper slot. To make this upgrade system even more interesting, higher quality implants can be made available through an upgrade in the Deadlink upgrades menu found in the hub area, which I had discussed in detail early in the video. And as I mentioned, these implanted upgrades are activated by weapon swapping, breaking C-balls, and using your abilities. So this further pushes the player to perform all of these actions. But this loop comes so naturally as you play the game that you hardly even think about this, because all of these actions are so necessary to your success. It basically just becomes second nature, and entering a flow state is what will happen if you choose to learn and engage with these systems. To go even deeper into these implants, These can include increasing weapon fire rate for a time, increasing damage, refilling ammo, gaining a temporary shield when entering each combat arena. This is very useful. Temporary immunity to damage, immunity while dashing, etc. There are so many good implant upgrades. And I can really go on and on because it just does just that. It goes on and on. There are so many upgrades and there's so much variety in the upgrade system. And on top of that, weapons can be upgraded with modifications that add fire damage, electrical damage, or toxic damage. The soldier's rocket launcher can even be replaced with a variant that does no self-damage. Speaking of weapon variants, there is a Deadlink upgrade that allows for the selection of different weapon variants to replace the secondary at the start of each run. My first successful run was helped by replacing my regular rocket launcher with the aforementioned variant that does no self-damage. And this even allows combat shells to wield variants of secondary weapons typically held by other combat shells. I learned that playing as the engineer with the soldier's rocket launcher was very fun, and this really made my first run in Deadlink's endless mode, known as Extant Existence, an absolute blast. Yeah, this game also has a great endless mode if it wasn't amazing enough already. Oh, and it also has 2 higher difficulties that can be unlocked by completing successful runs. Just another reason to keep coming back to Deadlink. The second difficulty level, which I unlocked, it mostly just seems to make enemies spongier and they deal more damage to the player, which isn't always my favorite way to go. I mean, this is artificial difficulty for sure, but like I said, it is still another reason to come back to Deadlink. This game's systems are so deep, yet so intuitive and so well balanced, and there is probably a lot that I missed, even though it might seem like I talked about so much. If you want an even deeper examination of Deadlink's gameplay systems, please check out Under the Mayo's videos on the game, as he is a great resource for shooters like this. In conclusion, if you like boomer shooters, and especially if you like games like Doom Eternal, Deadlink is a must-play. It is an incredible achievement by Grubby Entertainment, and they should be proud of what they have created. It is a remarkable game with a perfect gameplay loop and an interesting visual design that should be enjoyed by as many people as possible. I love this game so much, and if you haven't played it yet, I think that you will too. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe, and dislike it if you didn't. As always, enjoy the rest of your day.